You ever sit there thinking, I can't just add that into my setting, it doesn't fit. Or I really want to steal that idea, but I can't because it's going to be contrary to my theme and tone. If so, I'm here to tell you that you're being too restrictive. More restrictive than professional creatives would be in your shoes. Any campaign setting you love is secretly just a bunch of wildly different settings strung together into an elaborate salad of cool stuff the author liked. You could deny yourselves the joy of mixing things together in the kitchen sink all day, or you could have fun by playing with all your favorite toys. Let me walk you through themes, what they're about, and why they aren't as restrictive as you may think. Welcome to Mystic Arts, where I tell you the biggest missing fantasy in D&D is the Skaven. I mean, where's my army of warp-crazy rat people? I need it. It's important for my mental health. My emotional support rats. My name is Daði. I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for 10 years. And I want to talk to you about how I built this massive world behind me by mixing together silly concepts and pretending like they can all coexist in the same world. But first, let's talk about themes for a second. Loads of fictional settings use theme to create a central idea around which stories in that world revolve, even if David Benioff said themes are for 8th grade book reports. An example. In Star Wars, we're using themes of hope in the face of tyranny, redemption for the wicked, family, and legacy, that kind of stuff. In Lord of the Rings, it's the corrupting influence of power, the heroism of the unassuming, the burdens of sacrifice and responsibility. In Pirates of the Caribbean, it's the supernatural magic of the unknown and the unexplored, the consequences of ambition and greed, and the values of freedom when opposed to the tyranny of oppression. In Game of Thrones, it's realpolitik and its influence on the people who are powerless to affect it, the tyranny of the patriarchy and its tools of oppression, and the cyclical nature of historical events. So worlds have themes, right? What ties a setting together can be the personal worldview of the author and how it relates to the stories told within the story. Everything you then do in the setting reinforces the themes. In Middle-earth, we always return to the end of magic and wonder how the world is fading. In Game of Thrones, magic is returning, and that's bad news. There are even rumors of dragons across the sea. When you see these themes, you may think that you'll have to tread carefully to craft narratives, that if something exists and doesn't reinforce your theme, it's bad or contrary to the core of your narrative. You might then conclude that people who throw all their toys into a sink would be incapable of utilizing themes due to the constant chaos of balancing all these different facets of storytelling. But those people seem to be having fun, right? You can introduce a strong central theme to your world, make it be about something. Your game can, in other words, have a point, but it doesn't have to. You can just and roll initiative. When they were advertising the Avengers movie or the Lego movie, the marketing people talked about the idea of bashing all your toys together. This is sometimes pejoratively called kitchen sink role-playing. As in, it's all just thrown together without rhyme or reason just to have some fun. It's looked down upon, but I like having fun. I like bashing all the toys together and seeing what happens. It's fun, and loads of your favorite bits of pop culture are actually just elaborate kitchen sinks. Doctor Who, Rick and Morty, Discworld, the MCU are all huge kitchen sinks where anything can happen, and it'll be cool. Doctor Strange and Iron Man can have a conversation with a big purple alien about magic gems. Yeah, why not? Planescape and Spelljammer were massively popular campaign settings in their heyday, even if their 5e releases were criticized online. So are Final Fantasy and Shadowrun. Bashing all your toys together can be fun. And what's more, the kitchen sink concept is kind of realistic. There are all kinds of historical instances of wildly different genres clashing. We tend to think of Earth as consisting of individual genres or campaign settings. But as I've said before, Earth is a single campaign setting. Like, all those genres we play in existed on Earth at some point, often multiple at the same time. You've seen the image macro on the internet about how there was a 22-year window in which a samurai could have sent a fax to Abraham Lincoln. By the end of the Wild West, there were skyscrapers in New York. They were shooting guns in China before the Normans conquered England, and the British Empire famously struggled against the Zulu. One side had spears, the other had guns. Earth mixes genres all the time. I think there's nothing wrong with deciding to do it in your game. In fact, I think loads of campaign settings do it already. And if you think I've gone off the deep end, let me assure you that if you think about it, even published D&D settings are like this. The Forgotten Realms have Waterdeep, Ten Towns, and Chult, where there are dinosaurs. Even though dinos belong to a long distant past, in the Forgotten Realms, you could get a laser gun from an Autoloid and shoot a T-Rex with it. That's rules as intended, baby. These 3 places I just mentioned are all on the same continent, by the way. They don't feel like they're part of a same singular theme or vision, and I haven't even mentioned Karatur or Menzoberranzan or the Horde Lands. Eberron has Sharn and the Demon Wastes, and Talenta Plains, where there are, you guessed it, more dinosaurs. What's more, one of the most popular fantasy brands ever makes their entire living off of the kitchen sink. Warhammer Fantasy is the kind of ultimate example of how you can do a kitchen sink role-playing in a semi-realistic way, sort of. I'm not talking about Age of Sigmar or 40k, I'm talking about the old fantasy sets, and in particular, the way I got introduced to this setting in Total War Warhammer. There are countless nations dotted across a world map. It's a whole globe, so the map is huge. Each nation is wildly different from the others. I basically did the same thing with my world. The Empire of Man has guns, tanks, and a dogmatic religion. Bretonia has Pegasus Knights, feudalism, and Arthurian legend. There's dwarves, and they also have guns, and helicopters. Skavens have laser weapons and nukes. Elves fight for a magic sword. There's a bunch of necromancer Egyptians, pirate zombies, lizard folk with dinosaurs. Orcs use axes and pray to a god that it butts people. It's amazing. There is no end to this gonzo insanity. You could make your campaign setting look like that. I mean, plenty of people play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I don't. That system isn't for me, but I like their world, so I steal loads of their stuff. You could imagine if you ran a campaign in the Empire of Man, it would feel vastly different from a Bretonia game, right? One has steam tanks, the other has Pegasus Knights. Each area will feel unique, but there's also nothing wrong with a player playing as a retired Pegasus Knight in my Altdorf campaign, or vice versa. Or a Skaven infestation could be trouble in either game. And how cool would it be to play a single Free Company Militia PC next to the Bretonian Arthurian style knights? I don't think it would feel out of place either. You would feel like a foreigner, like a cultural outsider, but you wouldn't feel like Peter Porker shaking Miles Morales' hand.
I just washed my hands, that's why they're wet.
In my setting, I took the Tomb Kings, the Empire of Man, the Skaven, and so much more, and I just chucked them into my campaign setting. It doesn't feel disjointed because I connected everything with overarching themes. Think about it. Eberron has wildly different settings, but they're all tied together by their shock from the last war. I do the same. My version of the Tomb Kings faction and the Atroxian Republic, which is somewhat inspired by the Empire of Man, are both recovering from my own version of the last war. Their resources took a big hit, and now the entire world is terrified of starting the next war. So everyone's playing nice. This overarching theme acts as our world's common concern, which is a useful bit of glue that ties everything together. It's geopolitical glue, sure. Maybe your adventures are more heroic fantasy, so your factions might be concerned about a common enemy, like the rise of Vecna or the Invincible Overlord or whatever you think is a neat glue for them all to share. You can use all kinds of glue, from common concerns to common enemies to common ideals, common goals. They all glue your factions together. The more you play in a kitchen sink setting like this, the more glue you use. You'll introduce connective tissue at every opportunity, and slowly but surely it'll feel like one cohesive campaign setting. You tie each faction in with the rest via borders, trade agreements, common enemies, diplomatic agreements, whatever glue you use, you continue to apply until the whole world really sticks together. Basically, your faction's differences don't harm your overall theme, as long as the theme can still be applied. Maybe your common theme is dinosaurs. Maybe the key to making me fall in love with a campaign setting is the dinos. In my world, dinosaurs were killed by an extinction event 500 years ago. So if anyone wanted to fight them, they'd have to travel through time, which I've done in my games. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. Of course, there was a time travel plot. If you were looking for an excuse to run a homebrew adventure in Chult, Talenta Plains, Illustria, or a setting of your own, you might be interested in the sponsor of today's video. The Time Traveler's Guide to Dinosaur Hunting is a Kickstarter chock full of dinos. There's like 300 monsters in there. My favorite is the Brain Gorger dinos. They're aberrations that shoot mind blasts and eat brains. Why can't there be brain-eating dinosaurs? There's 12 bonkers one-shots in there that you can drop directly into your game, but there's also a guide on turning it all into a time travel campaign where you travel through time to kill all kinds of cool dinos. If any of this sounds like something you'd be interested in, there's a referral link in the description. Go check them out. All right then, let's put it all together. How does this world work? Well, you start by pouring all the stuff you like into the kitchen sink. Maybe you draw a map or plot out where your unique factions live. Dinosaur lizardmen go here, helicopter dwarves go there, Skaven nukes go underneath both. You fill up your map with dope factions that excite you. Each faction has its own theme or tone, its own ideals and ambition. Then it's up to you to imagine how they come into conflict. What might the helicopter dwarves do to bug the lizardmen dinosaurs? Why are they mad at each other? Or if they're friendly, what's compelling them to play nice? You never stop thinking of themes and applying them, since they're such a good story engine. If you have a solid theme, you can always generate conflicts. You know what your game's about. Because even if you create a whole continent with a theme, you'll discover intricacies as you delve deeper. Let me explain. This big purple blob here is Atroxia. Technically, it's 3 nations: the Atroxian Republic, the Ariston Confederate Union, and the Kingdom of Blackmoor. But the 3 of them all share a certain ethos that I'm rooted in our modern understanding of Victorian values. Progress. The idea that any problem can be solved through industry, innovation, technology, and growth. In the Republic, this progress is away from monarchies and towards a democratic system. In the Union, it's about the progress of individual freedoms and distance away from the unified whole. In Blackmoor, it's about national freedoms, as they've recently separated themselves entirely from the newly fallen Atroxian Empire. Each of them take these themes of progress and innovation, and they have their own view on it. As my players explore Atroxia, they'll discover more and more intricacies of this progress theme and idea. Technology plays a big role in progress. They got firearms, printing presses, trains, and even these things called hazies, basically simple versions of the Model T Ford. But how does that spread out across the continent? Well, it's not universal. The hazies can drive around the capital of Blackguard because they've got great roads, but they won't stand a chance elsewhere because there isn't money for cross-country road construction. The printing presses make daily newspapers in Blackguard, but if you live far out in the countryside, you might get a once-a-week delivery by horse. If you're out here in Loggers County, your most reliable news source is the ferryman. Progress, it turns out, isn't perfect. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Every new area you define within your original theme carries a new theme. You continue to drill downward on variations of your theme as long as you continue to go to new areas. This creates a world that's fun to explore, where it feels unique and diverse and exciting. And if at a certain point my heroes leave Atroxia, they might find themselves in the old world, which is all about knights, horses, castles, and wizards living in tall towers. Why do they always live in tall towers? What's that about? It's on the other side of the map and vastly different from Atroxia. The distance creates a certain excuse for me to have tech not reach the old world. Remember what we were talking about earlier with the samurai fax machine? On occasion, players ask why only the Atroxians create technology, but most of the time they understand that magic fills that hole elsewhere. And besides, I often make their tech available elsewhere. It's just super rare. Same is true of magic in Atroxia. It's present, just rare. That way, I maintain a certain amount of verisimilitude. In Atroxia, their intense taboo against magic has sort of forced them to evolve a lot like our Earth. As you create this way, your overall campaign setting reveals diverse, new mini-settings as you explore. When you invent a new nation, think of ways you can vary it up. Those are your cities, states, or regions. When you go to a new nation, think of a new theme. You'll have to decide where the differences are and why, but that's the fun of world building. You get to make those creative distinctions. Atroxians, for instance, have firearms. That makes them unique from the other nations in my world. Atroxian guns are powerful. They usually deal 2 dice of damage, but there's rules for reloading, and they usually require a feat to use. If you're interested in my homebrew firearm rules, you might consider joining our brand new Patreon. The Mystic Adept tier gives you access to the Atroxian Firearms PDF, as well as the ability to vote on video topics and ways to influence my ongoing D&D games. And of course, you'll get access to our community Discord. Check out the link in the description or go to patreon.com/mysticartsdm. And that's where we'll pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching this video. This channel is run by me and my girlfriend, and if you want to support our efforts of running the channel, consider becoming a Patreon or channel member. If you're feeling especially generous, you might like the video, comment, share, or subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.